Oh no, boo-hoo, Nvidia is down nearly 8% from its all-time high, and AMD seems to be taking some serious market share from them. In a brand new deal, Oracle is going to deploy 50,000 AMD AI chips. What does this mean for Nvidia? Is Jensen Huang the godfather of the AI space at this point, finally seeing competition from his distant cousin Lisa Su? Should Nvidia investors be worried about this, or is it just really a clickbait headline? And what does AMD and Lisa Su, their CEO, have up their sleeves this time? We gotta get to what Jensen Huang thinks about all this. Trust me, it's really funny. And again, as a recurring theme on this channel, we need to talk about these things and really get to the bottom of them, understand them at least at a higher level, because at the end of the day, AI spending is practically the entire economy right now. If AI spending goes away, then people with jobs will suffer because companies will start laying off. They'll become more productive with less people. So yeah, it's pretty important to you and I and anybody who has a job and wants to make a living. Now, to start off, as always, we need to look at some data. We need to build some context. And to do that, what better way than starting with what Jensen thinks of AMD's recent move with their OpenAI deal?
Yeah, I saw the deal. It's imaginative. It's unique and surprising. Clever, I guess.
So yeah, that's what Jensen Huang thinks. He thinks it's clever. He thinks it's interesting. He knows it's a last-ditch effort for AMD to get back into the game. They're essentially being forced to give up a fairly large stake of the entire company, 10%, in exchange for them to use some of their AI chips in future data center buildouts. Again, we've seen this story before. This is nothing new, but at the end of the day, this will benefit AMD and AMD shareholders tremendously, as they expect more than $100 billion in revenue from OpenAI over the coming years, nearly 3 times the amount of annual revenue that they're doing right now. This is incredibly timely and important for AMD to make this move right now. Why? Because a mere 2 weeks ago, Nvidia had their own deal with OpenAI, and Nvidia is pledging to invest up to $100 billion as OpenAI spends anywhere between $300 and $400 billion on Nvidia AI data center infrastructure equipment. And so AMD is starting to feel the pressure. Lisa Su is starting to get a little bit nervous. Why? Well, AMD showing some solid growth, very respectable. Oh, yeah, because Nvidia is absolutely blowing them out of the water. Lisa Su and AMD knows they have to get back into the AI data center infrastructure race, or they're going to be in some deep, deep water going forward. Oh, how did that get, darn it? Now, we just talked about OpenAI and Nvidia's insane deal in this video here, but basically for every gigawatt of data center that OpenAI deploys, 1 gigawatt, Nvidia is going to invest $10 billion into OpenAI. And as you may know by now, OpenAI doesn't make money, so they need this money to continue to fund their operations, to continue to train all their crazy new models, to generate memes of Sam Altman stealing shit on Sora 2.0. But anyways, for every $10 billion that Nvidia invests into OpenAI, for every gigawatt of data center they deploy, OpenAI is going to have to spend anywhere between 3 to 4 times that, $30 to $40 billion in revenue. Now, as we just talked about, AMD is trying to get back into the game. They're desperate, right? AMD says, hey, OpenAI, you can actually just have 10% of our company at essentially $0 per share as long as you buy chips from us. And as we just hit on, that revenue is going to be absolutely massive for them. So we know at this point, as of today, right now, Nvidia smells blood in the water, right? As of 2024, they basically own the entire AI data center infrastructure market, 92%, not too shabby, and AMD's sitting roughly around 4%. And now this could rapidly change, right? As we just saw, Oracle Cloud is looking to deploy 50,000 AMD AI chips. That's no chump change. That's a big deal for AMD, and starting soon in the second half of 2026, and obviously the OpenAI deal. So they're really trying to get some footing in the space, really take a larger and larger share and establish themselves as a reliable, a frankly dominant player in the space. So what's holding them back from doing this? Because as we understand, Nvidia engages in this sort of circular spending with their customers. You may have heard the term vendor financing. You may have heard the term round tripping revenue. In any case, it basically goes like this. Nvidia throws some money, throws a bone, invests in a company like CoreWeave, whose entire business model is to buy Nvidia AI data center infrastructure, install it, and eventually rent out that AI compute to companies, namely like OpenAI, companies at the application layer, right? Through consumer apps like ChatGPT, Sora, you name it. And so at the end of the day, Nvidia takes stakes in CoreWeave. They take stakes in OpenAI. They take stakes in Intel, loan money to Oracle. And you know what all these companies do in response is they give Nvidia some sort of benefit. CoreWeave buys chips from Nvidia. Oracle buys chips from Nvidia. Intel's now letting Nvidia in on the consumer PC processor market that they had pretty much a monopoly on for 10 to 15 years that AMD is now very competitive in too. And finally, we all know OpenAI is giving them a lot of money, let's just say. So it's a moment for AMD. It's do or die. They see all this stuff happening. All these companies spending a whole ton of money, and it all just coming back to benefit Nvidia in the long run. So what does AMD do? They are selling out on this opportunity. They say, you know what? Screw it, OpenAI. I know we're not as good as Nvidia. After all, Nvidia's been building out their competitive edge, their moat, for literally a decade now. So we know we're not the best, but we have a good product. It works. AMD even has chips that are better than Nvidia chips in certain circumstances. For example, sometimes large language models operating on a single server are more effective, more efficient, faster, cheaper than that same model being run on Nvidia chips. So there is an argument that AMD has some edge in the world of inference. In other words, consumers using large language models, right? And they are trying to absolutely maximize that. Hey, OpenAI, just take our company. Take as much money as you want from us. We just need you to buy from us, make us competitive at the very least. And so OpenAI has granted them their dying wish. They're back in the game. And Oracle sees the vision. They also agree AMD has its use cases. Maybe we could save some money on those Nvidia super chips that cost anywhere between 60 and 70K a pop that we're currently losing money on. The data center rental compute industry is tough to turn a profit right now, as the build out costs are, as you could imagine, pretty expensive when every chip costs you, tens of thousands of dollars, and you have to buy 50 to 1 million of them. There are circumstances where the AMD chips make more sense to be used than the Nvidia chips. If you just look at this example here, we have a memory comparison. And again, these are just raw specs, raw performance characteristics between the chips, not considering an entire AI architecture stack from software to the application layer, right? This is just a chip. And so a system using these AMD chips would actually be cheaper and more efficient for smaller scale large language models, purely looking at these performance characteristics. But obviously there's a catch, right? You can't just look at a specification, a list of performance characteristics, and make a decision on what company is going to win, what company is going to dominate. It comes down to their entire stack. And I'm not going to go into this in a ton of detail because one, it's super technical, super nerdy, and we like this stuff, but we don't have to go into the nitty-gritty details to really get the gist of what's going on here. If you do want to get into the details, read this article. But basically, Nvidia is really diving headfirst into this new industry, as they define it, called AI factories. Now, is it really a new industry? Well, no, not really. It's essentially just selling an entire full stack AI data center infrastructure as one large coherent system. It's definitely good for marketing to, say you're selling AI factories, the foundation for building and growing intelligence. But at the end of the day, it's just, hey, we're going to package all our cool proprietary stuff, from our CUDA software to our InfiniBand networking capabilities to our CPUs, GPUs, our switches, all in one pretty package. We'll install it, we'll ship it to you, all pre-built and ready to go in your environment. Now, that's a great value proposition. Who wants to sit and worry about the low-level crap that nobody cares about? Except for a few very important engineers that understand C, C++, and system-level language really well, right? We don't want to worry about that. We want to get into developing the ChatGPTs, the Soras, the Geminis. We want to develop those, large language models that consumers can use and actually take advantage of all this artificial intelligence that's out there to make our lives more productive and efficient. And I'm sure, as you've heard, the data center market size is, it's growing pretty fast. A lot of analysts have it hitting $1 trillion over the next decade or so. At the minimum, by 2030, we expect it to be about 437 billion. But we all know who has the best pulse on the industry. That's our good friend, the godfather of AI factories, I guess. We all know he has some far more optimistic projections than some of our analysts do. And that's the AI data center infrastructure market to hit 1 trillion in market size by 2028. Not even the end of the decade. That's nearly 2 years away now. And if he's right, 3 to 4 trillion by 2030. So again, it always goes back to who has the market share. And if Nvidia can maintain that market share of 92%, a virtual monopoly on the space. I mean, we're talking about 2 to 3 trillion in revenue in 2030. That is actually absurd. And obviously the stock is not pricing in that kind of money. Is that because AMD is about to take a much greater share of the market? Are their chips actually better for use cases like inference than Nvidia's are? And I think it's important to really go back to the basic fundamentals of both these companies, right? AMD grew up as a company producing the best CPUs in the market. AMD grew up producing the best GPUs in the market. Remember, GPUs were originally designed and specifically designed for one reason and one purpose only: to render 2D and 3D graphics for videos, for photos. So they were extremely specialized chips. Jensen Huang had a grand vision of bringing video game graphics to life. And the whole idea of focusing on video game graphics is definitely out the window now, as you have, some people with seemingly infinite amounts of money spending on AI data center infrastructure. Jensen knows he has to take advantage of the new wave. And this wave is specializing in exactly that, in building out this AI data center infrastructure, allowing these companies to build their applications upon the NVIDIA tech stack. And the earlier and the sooner you get to taking over that market, ultimately, the more users will be on your platform, the more developers will be in your software environment, and the quicker the growth will come. And when that growth comes, I can promise you, Jensen Huang's gonna be happy, and shareholders will be happy as well. Now, AMD with CPUs really being the brains behind your computer, right? A general nervous system, if you will. And so, yeah, they're more flexible, but when you specialize in something and get so incredibly focused and nuanced in the details, the performance you're working with goes straight up. It grows exponentially. And now, to really understand why what we're talking about right now is so incredibly and disproportionately important to the economy, to your job, to your investments and money, we have to understand why everybody wants compute so badly. And I'm an engineer, so I could do my best to explain that right now. But you know what? Don't take it from me. Take it from the founder and CEO of Grok. Let's listen to what he has to say about competition for compute, the demand and need to get as much compute as you possibly can, or you'll simply fall behind, adapt or die.
So right now, if you are an Indian tech company, an entrepreneur, and you want to build an AI company, you have to compete with everyone else to get that compute. Now, every year, NVIDIA builds about 5.5 million GPUs. If they had the ability to build 20 million, they would sell 20 million. That means that it's completely supply constrained. Just like you have energy security, you need compute security. And this is a new concept.
Just like we need energy security, we also need compute security. In other words, you don't have a choice. And whoever wins this battle between Nvidia, AMD, Broadcom, and others that are trying to make their wave in the space, at the end of the day, it's not a choice, but a necessity that companies need to spend money on compute to get ahead, to continue growth into the future. And yeah, obviously that's somewhat a bet on AGI in general. Who's going to be the first to achieve artificial general intelligence? Are we close to that? That's up to debate. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, but I'm not entirely sure that's coming anytime soon. But either way, agentic AI, large language models, these things are seriously disruptive and they change the way that we do things on a very daily basis. And so is AI a bubble? Well, you could certainly argue it any way you'd like, but at the end of the day, right now, AI spending is literally everything. And sadly, we're in an economy where the rich get richer. You're having teams of, 5 to 10 people getting instantaneous valuations of their company in the 10 to 20 billions of dollars. We're living in a time of incredibly fast adoption, and there's a hefty premium to this fast adoption. So these companies, these mega cap tech stocks, are willing to overpay by tens of billions of dollars to acquire, to invest in these small scale startups. It's literally never happened before, not even the dot-com era, but it's happening right now in this world today. So again, at the end of the day, can AMD flip the script? Can they turn the tides in the AI arms race? I mean, there's deals indicating that it's possible, but as we know, right now, Nvidia is pretty far ahead. And, I encourage you to watch this video here if you want to learn a little bit more about just how far ahead Nvidia actually is of AMD, because the gap may be bigger or maybe smaller than you think. Now, let me know what you guys think. Can AMD crack this massive virtual monopoly that Nvidia currently has? Can they take, 10, 20, 50% of this market? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe in the Lisa Su comeback story? I wish you luck out there, and I'll see you very soon in the next one. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.